Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Donna Thiesel, and I'm your host of Donna's Edge Television Talk Show. Thank you so much for watching every day, Monday through Friday, beginning at 1 p.m. as I get to ride home with you in the afternoon. You can find us syndicated on television. That's Abundant Television, found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. And don't forget the podcast on thenewscasters.com. You can also find us on all the social media sites. Still on Facebook.com. Been using that one for years. Facebook.com/DThiesel. YouTube, everything. But thank you again so much for watching. And continue sending email. You know, those make my day. You're not bothering me one bit. You keep doing that. Donna@donnasedge.com. That's Donna@donnasedge.com. The big social that we're talking about right now is Charlie Kirk. I've got my friend Alan Mendenhall with me today. He's with the Heritage Foundation. Wanted to tell you about what somebody said about you yesterday. Oh, it was good. So my friend Ann Eubank was with me yesterday, and she said, who's going to be on the show with you tomorrow? And I said, Alan Mendenhall. She broke in right then and said, you know what? He reminds me of Charlie Kirk. That's what she said. And I said, in what way? And she said, he gets his point across, but he does it in the right way.
Well, that's a high compliment. I really appreciate that.
It's high. So I was wanting to let you know that if she likes you, if Ann Eubank likes you, that's something.
Well, okay. That's very good to know. Thank you to Ann. That's very kind.
But she's a sweetheart too. So she was a fun interview yesterday as well. But the subject line, most of the emails I have, just a few gardening ones this time. You know, normally it's 100% gardening. But folks are really upset about the assassination of Charlie Kirk.
Yeah, it is a frightening time and a tragic time. Charlie Kirk is somebody my son watched regularly. I didn't watch Charlie Kirk very often. I mean, every now and then, if I were scrolling through Instagram or something, a clip may pop up, but he actually not somebody whose career I followed, mainly because he did sort of appeal to a younger demographic. He appealed to college students and he appealed to teenagers like my son. And the more I've looked into his message, the more I realize, you know, he's sort of just had regular old standard conservative positions. He was not taking extremely controversial stances on issues. And what has disturbed me the most, well, I shouldn't say it disturbed me the most because the video footage of the assassination was horrifying and incredibly disturbing. But also disturbing was the celebration on social media by different people, which shocked me to the core, because I think about my political enemies, for lack of a better term, and I think about the people whose politics I disagree with the most, and never, ever, ever would it cross my mind to want that person dead. It just is inconceivable. I would never, ever be able to celebrate the assassination of another human being. And I'll be perfectly honest with you. When the United States killed Osama bin Laden, I thought, yes, justice has been done. But I actually didn't really like how college students were taking to the streets and there were celebrations in the streets. Something about that seemed a little icky to me. Mm-hmm. I agreed that Osama bin Laden got what he deserved and that we needed justice, but maybe a more appropriate response wouldn't have been gloating, but would have been a prayer vigil for the victims of the dead. Yeah. You know, a circle full of holding hands and praying, giving, you know, about justice and God's will being done and things like that. That strikes me as being the appropriate response. But even in somebody who absolutely deserved what came, I could not sit there and just celebrate.
I could say that Charlie Manson was the same deal. There were people celebrating that one. And all I could think of is, where's his soul right now?
Yeah,
I just all I could think about.
Yeah, somebody's death is not something to celebrate. It's just not. It is a time for reflection, for self-reflection, because we are all headed toward that same fate. We are all going to die. But hopefully, most of us are going to do it of natural causes, that we will reach the natural termination of our lifespan and our lives won't be cut short early by the bullet of an assassin. Violence is inexcusable. And some of the reactions I've seen online, as I say, are horrifying. And even people who didn't go so far as to celebrate the death, but who are spreading misinformation. Mm-hmm. I'll give you an example. I had a professor in graduate school who is my Facebook friend, who posted something that a Washington Post reporter had posted on social media. I can't recall where. I don't know if it was Twitter or Bluesky or whatever it was. I just don't remember. But the quote was something that, taken out of context, was clearly a racist statement. However, it was not a quote that you could accurately attribute to Charlie Kirk, because what Kirk was in fact saying, if you had looked at the full context, was affirmative action, DEI programs, I can't remember which example it was, but it was one of those two, are bad in part because they lead people to think. And then he said some hypothetical about what people might think about why somebody got the job. And it had something to do with this person didn't merit the position. This person didn't, and if you had just looked at that quote, it would have seemed like a very negative statement about somebody of a different race. But in fact, the way that quote was framed, he was not embracing that position. He was saying this position is bad. Therefore, we should not promote these policies because they lead people to embrace this bad position. Mm-hmm. And to see somebody put forth the bad position as if it were one held by Charlie Kirk is just dishonest. And so I was disappointed that this person who holds a PhD in English would spread that kind of misinformation, disinformation. That person is smart enough to go to Google and look up the quote and find the full context. That person should have known that, well, there has to be a little bit more to this Washington Post story, because surely if Charlie Kirk said that, there would be legitimate outrage. But in fact, in the 20 to 30 seconds it would take to Google that quote, you could have learned why this reporter was fired and why that quote was ripped out of context. And to spread it online is irresponsible.
100% agree with you on that. And that's the thing about it too, is how many people are led the wrong way who are not doing their own research? You and I research everything. We just love to research. I just look for reasons. Why does a fly fly? I mean, I just want to know things. But especially from Washington, especially from any media source, you'd better do some research on it before you get yourself out there and say something that's not the truth.
That's exactly right. And I hear people make these apples and oranges comparisons. Well, they'll say, well, what about the violence on the right? What about the on the right? What about the alleged? What about not the alleged? What about the attempted kidnapping of Governor Whitmire? What about the assassination of other politicians in Minnesota? And I said, well, those are horrible things. I'm outraged about those as well. Mm-hmm. Those are outrageous. Violence is never the answer. That stuff should never happen in a civilized society. I will stand by that. I will not stand by anybody celebrating those things either. That's terrible. Nobody should celebrate that stuff. Nobody should contemplate doing it. Nobody should attempt to do it. It's inexcusable and irresponsible, bad, immoral, unethical, absolutely worthy of total condemnation. Whether the right does it, whether the left does it, nobody should commit violence. It's unacceptable. It's inexcusable. Our differences and disagreements have to be meted out through discourse and rhetoric and not through force or coercion. That's what civilized society is. Civilization is the best we're going to get. In my opinion, we do not live in a world in which we are ever going to attain perfection. Disagreement, conflict are unfortunately inevitable states of the human condition. We will never agree 100%. If you get 30 people in a room and ask them a question about anything, whether it's whether they like a particular flavor of ice cream or whether it's something more serious like their political views, you're not going to get 30 people to agree.
People will argue about ice cream.
And people argue about it, but we have to learn to live civilly with our differences, and executing somebody, killing somebody, assassinating somebody is unacceptable. The only instance in which violence is acceptable is in self-defense, to prevent yourself from getting killed. That's about it.
Mm-hmm.
There are other maybe possible exceptions of if you're a soldier in combat, but that's about it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I'll give you a good example. Oh, this one is really, really good, Alan. I'm an Auburn fan. Phil is an Alabama fan. If we can live with that, you can live with anything else.
That's a very Alabama reference too. That's
a good one.
I go to all these conferences around the country and sometimes in other countries, and it's always funny to me when I start talking about Auburn Alabama rivalry or even college football, and people are like, you're not going to this person's wedding because there's a college football game? Like, well, yeah, but I mean, it's not my sister, but my sister would never have a wedding on a college football game, so I wouldn't have to worry about it,
Well, it's hilarious. I mean, just the different things people argue about. But I like to use this. I am an Auburn fan, but I'm not that blood. In other words, I have a sister who's an Alabama fan. She's an Alabama fan, and whoever is playing Auburn. And that makes absolutely no sense to me, because I would think you would want the state you live in to win.
Yeah,
and that's your team. But then, it's healthy to me. If say Auburn can't do it, then I'm rooting for Alabama. That's just the way it is.
Well, I'm not quite as good of a person as you are on that front. I understand rationally what you say. But when I turn on the TV, yeah, he might edit something into this video that I might say, like I've got like little horns or something. Yeah, now I'm giving him ideas.
You guys don't work against me on this.
If you do it, Phil, just do it for that one little clip, and then take them away.
But you know something? It's really, you should think of it that way. Okay, now I have liberal friends. Okay, I don't understand at all why you would be celebrating this. But you know what? Most of my liberal friends are not celebrating. It's a group of people who are doing this to cause divisions within people. Now, I do have some that are. I really do. And I feel for them, and I pray for them every single day, because there's something wrong up here. You don't celebrate anything like that. I'm with you 110%.
Yeah. Never. I can't even conceive of it. I mean, like I said, when Saddam Hussein was executed, or when Osama bin Laden was killed, I just, it's hard for me to feel joy or happiness from those things. In fact, it's not hard. I don't. If anything, I feel icky. Like it's terrible that these things, that we live in a world where these things have to happen, where where even a terrorist has to be killed. It's sad that this is the state of humanity. I don't celebrate somebody's death. I just could never do that.
Let me ask you a question. Okay, and then of course this is pertaining to Charlie Kirk. Do you think the killer worked alone?
I don't know. I have no idea. When it comes to things like that, I hesitate to speculate, because I would rather wait for law enforcement to come out with facts. I know he was on some kind of online community. I saw this on the news this morning when I was exercising. I can't even remember what the name of it was. There are all these things that exist on the internet that I don't even know what they are. And, I don't know. It sounded as if he had grown up in a hunting family, and so he clearly knew how to use a weapon. So, and I don't know, honestly, I don't know how difficult it is for somebody to plot out something like this on a campus if you're familiar with the campus. And, I just don't know. And he picked a non-politician target, somebody who doesn't have Secret Service, and that I think is also why part of this is partly so horrifying is, to some degree, as tragic as it is, we're not surprised when politicians get targeted. It's a shame that we live in such a society, but it may not surprise us because we've had that happen in our history. We've seen what happened to Bobby Kennedy. We've seen what happened to JFK. We've seen what happened to Garfield. Seen what happened to Lincoln. These are all horrible things, and they're things that we still mourn today, but we know that those are going to happen. We don't often see it happening to people who are private citizens expressing their views on a college campus where the clash of ideas is supposed to occur. A college campus is a place where discourse and dialogue are supposed to be the norm. It's a place where we're supposed to ferret out the truth or reality or facts, and where differences of opinions can coexist.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about kids going to college these days? And I'm saying that because of this. Okay, so I had John Merrill with me on the show yesterday. He comes to, when I come to Alabama once a month, he's always with me. And I said, I just assumed Charlie Kirk had like degree upon degree upon degree. And I just assumed that, because he's so bright, he's so smart, and he seemed to have the right answers, well thought out. And people would just throw a question out to him, and he was able to do that without reading cards, that kind of thing. And he said, oh, no, he was self-educated.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, that's surprising. Are you serious? And he said, because I would have just thought degree upon degree. And he said, no, we went to college like a semester or something like that.
Yeah, he never earned a college degree. And I don't think college is necessary for many people. I really don't. And that's for a variety of reasons. One reason is, in particular, in business schools, and keep in mind, I was an associate dean of a business school for 5 years. Mm-hmm. In business schools, much of what you learn is not necessary for the quote unquote real world. In fact, you would probably learn more doing an actual job than you would in a classroom learning theory or abstractions about how that job is supposed to work. So there's nothing you wouldn't learn better out there in the workforce for many, many business majors. The other thing is, there are a lot of jobs out there that don't require a business major. There are many forms of labor. I mean, welders, plumbing, even I've got a friend who's a handyman, and he makes a 6-figure salary, does quite well for himself. And guess what? In the 4 years that somebody else took going into debt, going into maybe not 6-figure debt, but going into significant debt, during the 4 years that someone spent doing that, they could have been earning that 6-figure salary. My phone, Siri on my phone just said, sorry, I don't understand. I didn't realize Siri was on. That's funny.
Yeah, they're listening.
I didn't know Siri was listening. That's very odd. And she's still listening. I'm going to move her away.
Well, we moved to South Carolina, and so there is a mobile home on the land. And so we're repairing that mobile home and just updating it, making it look better, and to rent it out to someone. And so Phil had an electrician come over, a couple of young guys. Now, I consider you young if you're 60 years and younger. But they were very young. So they were out there and really knew their stuff. I mean, these guys were like right on it, and and they were with a national company, but they started out working, with this company without even being paid. And they got it going on. So I mentioned to one of them, I said, so did you go to tech school? And he said, yeah, but I worked as an apprentice. And the other guy said he had worked as an apprentice. And I said, good for you. And they're doing really, really well with this company. They're moving up and, lots of business for them. And he said, something I find interesting. And I said, what's that? Because I love to talk to the people out there. And he said, well, my friends who went to college and got the degree, when I call them and ask them if they want to go out to eat, they can't afford it because they're busy paying for their college. And they have no money left over from their house payments and all that kind of stuff. This guy paid cash for his truck. He paid a huge down payment on a house. I mean, and he doesn't have the college debt. And he said, I'm not against it. And he said, it's just that, they were making fun of him because he didn't go get the college degree. And he said, I'm in much better shape than they are.
Oh, I've got a friend who is a medical doctor, and I won't say what kind because I have lots of friends who are medical doctors, but if I said which kind, it would reveal who this person is. But this person had massive six-figure debt from undergraduate and medical school. And this person went to get a loan for a house, and it took a long time to get a loan for the house. Now, eventually the bank said, well, this person has high earning capacity despite this astronomical debt, but we can't give him a loan for a house of this cost because it is too much risk. And this person was, starting his career essentially a decade after, at least a decade after all our friends from college. And heck, I'm not that different of a situation. I had a late start myself because of going to school and doing things like that. But I didn't get as expensive of a degree as he did. And my English degrees and my PhD, that cost me nothing. Those were all, that's all free. Free. There's no such thing as free. Those were all scholarshiped or whatever. They don't accept people into the program who aren't covered already. So it wasn't as if I had to take out loans for a master's in English or a PhD in English or something like that. But at any rate, a lot of young people are starting off in massive debt, and that's delaying their ability to start families. It's delaying their ability to have children. It's delaying their ability to live in a community and have the quality of life that they wish. And it's just not worth it. And I think people are waking up to that reality. And I think also higher ed has become ideologically captured, in particular within the humanities. And so the humanities enrollments are in rapid decline. And so fewer people see value in going to major in left-wing politics, where we are going to talk about Shakespeare, but only as the pretext for some latest trend in transgenderism. Like, we're going to read Twelfth Night, and we're going to focus with hypersensitivity upon the cross-dressing characters and make all kinds of political inferences based on those characters and the fact that Shakespeare only had male actors during his time, and discuss that within the context of today and what that has to do with transgender politics and all this kind of. People have better things to do with their time than that. Most people are trying to figure out how to put dinner on the table for their family, how to feed their kids, how to have a good quality of life, how to enjoy a football game on Saturday, how to improve their golf score, how to get along better with their neighbor, how to have fun. Not everybody has to be hyper politicized or invested in some sort of cause where the stakes are so high.
That's unreal. I've got to say this about one of my granddads had a 9th grade education. He didn't go to college. He didn't finish high school. And this guy, and I'm not saying this is the plan for everybody, but I'm just saying this guy was pretty much self-taught. He believed in reading. And if he even, I'm talking about even in the 1960s and the 70s, if he saw us watching television, we were shamed. He said, you know what you could be spending your time doing? Reading a book. What are you doing to your mind?
Yes. I think the average adult person, at least 50 years ago, but probably even 100 years ago as well, in the United States of America, was far more literate than that person today. And partially I think it's because of our attention spans. We're so used to that 140 character tweet or whatever the number is. I don't know if it's 140 characters anymore, but we're so used to just digestible sound bites that it's difficult to pick up a book and read it cover to cover. And we thought the internet was going to free us up and make things more efficient, but actually it just means we have more information coming in more frequently, and we get inundated with emails, some of which, frankly, we probably just should ignore. We get so much that we can't possibly go through our inboxes, and it's distracting us from the things that make life good. time with family, time with children, time exercising, time with friends, recreation, church, worship, prayer. These things are far more important than most of the things that we get in our inbox, if not all of them.
I got tickled with Phil. Phil has the Holy Bible on his King James Version. He has the Holy Bible on his cell phone. So we were going to church, and the church we've been going to, almost everybody was in Alabama. Almost everybody did that. So it was nothing. The pastor even laughed and said, I don't know if you're really looking at your Bible on that or you're looking on Facebook. You know, so we've been going to a new church since we moved here. And I told Phil, I said, you might want to just like bring the Bible, because it really does look like you might be playing on Facebook.
Well,
looking at your Bible app.
I have done that before, where I have been out of town and visited a church, and I didn't have my Bible because I was out of town and I forgot it. Oops. I actually usually now I carry this daily Bible around. It's a chronological Bible, so you can't just, they say like, I don't know, turn to Luke or something. It's more difficult because all the Gospels are integrated in because it's chronological. You know, the stories are all integrated, so it's harder to, you can't just find Luke. But at any rate, and I had to use my cell phone when I was out of town, and I felt the same way. I felt so illicit, like I was doing something wrong, like I was on screen. Now the benefit is you can just
it's the Bible app. You want to say that it's the Bible app. I'm not playing.
Well, that's great. Yeah, no, and you just rather than flipping through, you could just type, you know, Psalm 61, and boom, it's there. It's like, oh, that's even faster than flipping. And then if you're somebody that can't recall the order of all the texts, and you're like, well, Habakkuk. Where does Habakkuk go? I know it's somewhere close to the middle. It's in the Old Testament, where, you know, and it's really short, so it's hard to just open it up like
I know
is in the middle, you know, like so, you know, maybe if I just have my phone, I just go straight to Habakkuk.
I totally agree with you. Let's go into a commercial break. I want to talk to you about fraud. And there's a lot of fraud right now, especially after the Charlie Kirk thing, after this murder. It's just terrible. And what's happening is I'm receiving all these emails saying it's money going to a Charlie Kirk fund. And you know it's not. So I've been deleting all of those. So if you want to give to anything, go directly to their website, the official website. So that's already happening. Can you believe that? People are trying to help the killing. It's unreal. I can't believe people are doing this, but they are. Let's go to a break. We'll be right back in just a few minutes.
Twin City Used Car Sales has been serving drivers in the Northeast Alabama area for years with a quality selection of late model used cars, SUVs, and pickup trucks. On top of our extensive selection and competitive prices, we offer professional auto financing services for used car buyers of all credit levels. Whether you've just begun your search or you're ready to secure your next vehicle, at Twin City Used Car Sales, you will drive away with the vehicle of your dreams. The sales and finance staff at Twin City Used Car Sales looks forward to serving you, and you can apply for financing online before your visit to our used dealership in Gadsden, Alabama. Check us out on the web at twincityusedcars.com or go by our location at 901 First Avenue, Gadsden, Alabama. We sincerely look forward to serving you. At Lamone's Mexican Restaurant, located in Henniger, Alabama, and voted Best Mexican Restaurant of DeKalb County, Alabama 2020, we're here to serve you with authentic Mexican cuisine. Order easily online by going to lamonsmex.com or call 256-657-3999 to place your order. We're open Sunday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Friday and Saturday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Whether you're celebrating a cozy date night for two or a celebration for a crowd, at Lamone's you'll love our atmosphere and friendly servers. Thank you for dining with Lamone's Mexican Restaurant. At Liberty Bank, we're all about community. Whether it's to help with a charity fundraiser or help families in need, toys at Christmas, or a local football team, we're here for you. You see, we realize the importance of family. Sometimes it's to build a new home or necessary home repairs. We're here for you. If you like the feel of a small town bank with all the conveniences of a big city bank, we're here to serve you. You will find us at any of our convenient locations in DeKalb, Marshall, Etowah, and Blount counties in North Alabama. You can call and speak with any of our friendly staff at 256-659-2175 or check us out on the web at libertybankal.com. And thank you for your support of our community. Member FDIC Equal Housing Lender.
I'm excited to announce our Christmas extravaganza is finally here. Get this season's flannel sheets for as low as $59.98. They won't last long, so get them while you can. Our famous My Slippers, they have been on sale for over a year. Regularly $119.98, now only $59.98. Our 6-piece towel sets are back in stock with extremely limited quantities, only $29.98. With hundreds of MyPillow products, there's something for everyone on your Christmas list. Bathrobes, duvets, quilts, down comforters, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save on all MyPillow products. For example, flannel sheets for as low as $59.98. Or our 6-piece towel sets, just $29.98. But that's not all. I'm extending our 60-day money-back guarantee until March 1st of 2025. Plus, all orders over $75 or more ship absolutely free.
The only place I buy my beef is Lone Tree Ranch in Collinsville, Alabama. Their cattle is born and raised on their ranch, grass and grain fed, and you can feel confident when you serve your family and friends because their beef is all natural and no antibiotics or hormones are added. You can buy whole beef or perhaps go in with family or friends and buy half. Their customer service is number one as they take care of the delivery to their local processor and can deliver to your home for a small added fee. They also offer herd replacement heifers. I always call Lone Tree Ranch in Collinsville, Alabama for my beef specialty recipes and cookouts, and you can too. Food shortages are increasing, so buy local by calling 256-523-6462. That's 256-523-6462.
We are back. My name is Donna, and I am your host of Donna's Age television talk show for Truth Matters. That's why we always have Alan Mendenhall with us. He's with the Heritage Foundation. What's going on with the Heritage Foundation at this point?
Oh my goodness, we have so many things going on. I work in the Capital Markets Initiative, and we're about to do some exciting things. I don't believe I'm at liberty to discuss them at the moment, but we've got some really exciting things coming up. Obviously, the Heritage Foundation is at the forefront of pretty much all policy discussions, and we are right there on Massachusetts Avenue in DC. I'm blessed to be able to work remotely from Auburn, Alabama. I go up to Heritage a week a month and work from the office there. But I think it's great that we have people like me who are planted out in the heartland so that we can be in DC but not of DC. I think it's important for institutions to know what it's like on the ground in red states and blue states and rural America, and to know what the people think, because Washington, D.C. is far from representative of the rest of the country.
Totally agree. Let's talk a little bit about fraud. So ever since Charlie Kirk has been assassinated, I'm talking about that afternoon, I started receiving texts about giving to the Charlie Kirk Fund, and they make it sound as if it's from there. But now, I probably get about 10 of these a day now. It's just ongoing. So what I do is when it is a message I don't want to see anymore, I click on it, and there's a place to report junk. Now, this is on the Apple phone, so you can click that, and then you can also click and report it. So you better believe I'm doing that every single time. If you want to give to a cause, whether that be, whatever it is, Salvation Army, go straight to their website. Do not give from a text that comes through on your phone nor an email. Just don't do that. And if it's a bunch of jumbled up words and it's not like, say, the Heritage Foundation, whatever your website is, .com, whatever, don't give to it. And even be careful there, because sometimes there could be a donnasedge.com, there could be a donnasedge.net. Just make sure it's the correct ending as well. Why are people doing this?
I think because it works and they scam people, and people, they make money off of people. I hate to say it, but forms of fraud have been around forever, and they're not going to stop. Unfortunately, when you have new technologies, there's a learning curve, and it takes time for people to adjust to the new ways of getting scammed. And, I've almost fallen for scams before myself, and I think that I'm a pretty sophisticated person who's unlikely to fall from, fall for things like an email from a Nigerian prince or something, or whatever, somebody who alleges that they're in distress in their vacation and they need a wire transfer immediately. I'm not going to fall for those kind of things, but have I fallen for other things? Yeah, I sure have. Nothing that went to the point where I lost money or anything like that, but I've clicked on the wrong things and had to undergo security measures and do things like that. And fraud gets increasingly sophisticated. One interesting thing, and this is a slight pivot, but it's just because you brought up the example of fraud. Tomorrow, I drive down to the University of West Florida for a debate, and my interlocutor will be taking the position that we ought not to interpret the Constitution strictly, but allow room for natural law interpretations, whereas I'm taking the sort of originalist position, which is more historically, at least since the 1980s, the position that conservatives hold. Mm-hmm. We're both conservative, by the way. We're just taking different sort of hermeneutical or interpretive positions on this issue. Mm-hmm. But one point that I wish to make, that I anticipate making based on his natural law approach, is that there's certain natural law principles that we all agree to, basically. I mean, every decent, reasonable human being agrees that fraud, the example that you're giving, is bad, and that it's wrong, unethical, immoral, and should be illegal. Mm-hmm. That said, we have other forms of positive law to address situations that are gray area. Most of legal practice operates in a gray area. So, for example, what about, let's just say not something as extreme as false advertising, but let's talk about puffery. What if, you remember the movie Elf with Will Ferrell, and he says, "Congratulations, world's best cup of coffee." He goes, well, is putting world's best cup of coffee on your door fraud? Well, we all agree that lying is bad, but given the context or the situation, is that a lie or is that sort of a joke? Does everyone see world's best cup of coffee and have a nice laugh and think, that's good advertising? That's not, we all know that's not real. And so that's funny. It's a joke. It's not a lie. But we also have rules that suggest procedural protection. So, for example, what if somebody accuses you of saying something that you didn't say? Well, we all agree that lying's wrong, but what if somebody does it about you? And then we have to have evidentiary standards. Did somebody in fact lie? We have to have rules about hearsay. We have to have rules about how evidence gets admitted, how many witnesses you have, whether something's written or verbal. We have to have all these sort of things in place to determine whether somebody is committing fraud. What if you spread misinformation, but you think that information is correct? Are you committing fraud if you sincerely believed that the information you were giving somebody was actually correct? Do we impose liability or punishment on you for your mistake? So you've got all these sort of granular nuances that address the messy realities of human interaction. And yes, we can agree that fraud is bad, but what about all this other messiness? I'll give you an even more a sort of absolute extreme example, which is murder. We all agree that murder is wrong. It's bad. It's immoral. It should never happen in society. It should be illegal. But what happens, to use that example earlier, what happens with a soldier in combat? We don't call that murder, or maybe we do depending on how the war plays out. What about medical malpractice? What about a doctor who's trying to help somebody and the patient dies? Well, why is that different? We all agree that killing somebody's bad, and this person killed somebody, but it doesn't seem like murder to us. Why is that? We have to ask these questions. Why should the law draw out exceptions for that? What about if you drink and drive and kill somebody? We tend to think that that constitutes some form of homicide. But why is it? It's because you chose to do something that is extremely reckless, that could it's reasonably foreseeable that that conduct would lead to somebody's death. So you made decisions that led to somebody's death, even if you didn't intend to kill somebody. But what if you intended to burn a building down, and it was a building that was on your property, and you were entitled to burn it down, but you didn't know there was a homeless person sleeping inside it, or something like that, or what if, you can think of all kinds of weird sort of situations. What if you're a police officer? What if somebody is breaking into your house and they get in and you shoot them? Or to change the facts, what if they start breaking into your house, you pull a gun and they run away, and as they're running away, you shoot them in the back? Are those two scenarios distinct? And what makes them distinct? Why is that different? Why might we think one's not murder, one is murder? These are where the law works. It works in all the gray areas. So yes, from a natural law perspective, we can agree to the principle that killing is wrong. But what about all these other situations where we're not really sure? Or what about if we don't know whether a suspect did it or not? We have to have all these evidentiary standards in the positive law to ensure that an innocent person doesn't get convicted, and that, proper evidence gets admitted in all these different areas. So yeah, I think the natural law is already embedded into our legal system, and the higher order principles already exist within our Constitution, that our Constitution reflects these principles. But when it comes to the messiness of everyday human interaction, the answers just aren't always as easy as we would like them to be.
So let's use Elf again. I love the movie, by the way. It's a Christmas classic. We have to watch this one. But where he runs into the coffee shop, congratulations. Well, let's say pure ignorance on his part. He literally thought they had been voted somewhere in the realm of things to be the world's best coffee shop. So there he was parading it. Really, congratulations to you on this. Or let's say in the case of murder, and maybe the killer doesn't know the woman is pregnant, so it winds up being 2 deaths. Now, because the woman is pregnant as well. So there are varying situations. You are absolutely right about that.
Yeah, the world's a messy place, and there are reasons why these distinctions and these rules emerged out of centuries of literally, I was going to say trial and order, but literally trial and order. I mean, literally, that's where they emerged out of complex situations and carve out exceptions. And, maybe there was a legal system that started with these clear 10 principles, like the 10 commandments. But then you got down to whether, like, for example, thou shalt not kill. We're talking about all these messy situations. We all agree thou shalt not kill, but is this a killing or is that a killing? And what happens if we don't know who did it, and how do we figure it out? And how do we ensure that there are fair trials so that we don't punish people who didn't commit crimes? And these are things we work out over centuries and centuries and centuries of experience.
But the one that really gets to me is the vigilante daddy. Okay, so his daughter is killed. Okay, so he thinks the law is going to be totally against him. The killer's going to get off free, and he goes out and kills the person. That one, I understand it. I don't understand it. I understand why you would do. I mean, I would probably think the same thing. I might think if one killed one of my kids, I might think, you know what, he's going to wind up, or she's going to wind up getting by with it. So I'm going to end it for that person. Of course, I'd wind up putting a gun on myself too because I killed somebody. But what I mean is there are some things that just make you sit back and think.
Yeah. So
that's one of them.
There is an ancient Greek playwright, Aeschylus, who authored the Oresteia. And the Oresteia is essentially a story about the growth of civilization. And so you had humans and gods living in antiquity, and justice was meted out through blood feuds and violence and revenge. The order of the day was vengeance. And you shed blood. Somebody kills your family member, you go kill their family member, exactly as you say, exactly as you explain. The problem is it's very difficult to cultivate civilized society when everybody is animated by vengeance, because everybody wants revenge. You'll never be satisfied. If you kill somebody, they kill your family, then you kill their family, and then they kill their family, and nobody, it's just a cycle of violence. Mm-hmm. Well, in the story, Athena, who's the goddess of wisdom, intervenes and essentially sets the stage for public disputation, so that the Furies are the gods that are out for revenge, and they're trying to mete out punishment all the time. But Athena channels anger and vengeance through a system, through a legal system, through trial. And for Greek life, this was very important. If you have institutions and procedures and processes and rule of law, then all of a sudden anger is channeled through these mechanisms, so that justice eventually is served most of the time, but it's done in a way that you don't fall into this retaliatory cycle of violence. Mm-hmm. And that's what civilized society looks like. As I mentioned earlier, there is no perfection on Earth. We'll never have a utopia here on this planet. Human beings just aren't capable of it. But the best we can hope for is civilization, where we minimize violence and maximize individual liberty as much as possible, and we live in a world where we feel safe and we can raise our families, and we have some sense of human flourishing, where we can enjoy ourselves and we can read, we can have recreation, and we don't have to be afraid to go outside. I mean, that's the best we can really hope for, but it's something that I'm afraid we're losing right now.
Yeah, but something that I've thought about too. Okay, and I mean, because I've seen like real life stories of people whose kids were killed and the dad just goes after vengeance for them. Then I've seen people, if someone killed their kids, and they actually, at the end of the trial, they would actually tell that person they forgave them. And it seems like that's more, it seems like that would be a better way to get back at them than killing them. I mean, because you're saying, you know what, I'm giving you grace.
You know, that is a very true thing. So when I mention Aeschylus, this is before the spread of Christianity throughout the Western world. And Christianity and the teachings of Jesus introduce this concept of forgiveness that is there in the Old Testament. I read through the Bible every year. I took a few years off after COVID because I just fell into a bad pattern, but I started back. I'm back in the Bible. I'm still in the Old Testament right now. And this is, again, a chronological Bible. But this time through, I have seen the roots of Jesus's teachings on both repentance and forgiveness, more so than I've ever seen it during my read through. I don't know why this particular read through, it's sticking out to me, but it is. So I in particular, I'm seeing it through the major and minor prophets. At any rate, the spread of Christianity throughout the Western world takes this notion of forgiveness and amplifies it, magnifies it to an extent that we really have not seen before. And wow, is it the most liberating thing that has ever happened to people, in the sense that somebody does something wrong to you, you are angry, you are mad, you want revenge, you want justice, but to stop and say, you know what? I forgive this person. It takes all that off your shoulders.
Move on.
And it allows you to move on with your life and to be happy again, because anger is a dangerous emotion. It eats at you and eats at you and eats at you. And if you live by anger, it will destroy you. It will destroy everything good in you. You have to let it go. You have to let go of anger. You have to be able to say, you know what? This thing happened to me and it was unjust and I did not deserve it, but I can spend my life dwelling on it to the extent that it paralyzes me in other areas of life, or I can let it go. I can forgive that person and I can move on with my life and choose to be better than that person was to me to other people. I can choose to be better to other people. I can learn from that experience and improve myself. And that's an amazing thing to be able to do. None of us is able to live up to that all the time. We all have our grievances. There's so many people, I still have my list in my head of people that I'm still mad at for this or that, but we have to get over that. And we cannot let those things paralyze us or consume us, because anger is just all consuming. It's unhealthy. And if you're just angry all the time, you are going to lose the best of who you are.
Well, the way I like to look at it too, because people do things, sometimes it's out of ignorance and sometimes they do it on purpose. But the way I like to look at it is, if I'm mad at them and I'm still holding this grudge, they still got power over me, and I don't like that.
100%.
So I forgive them, I move on. You're taking the power away from them and you got it. So that's that way they can't change your emotions. But I wanted to ask you about this. The one that has always gotten me in history is the Salem witch trial. Okay, this one has always got me. I remember hearing about this in school. It was a study back when I went to school. So even back then I thought, well, was it a trick? Was it a trick to see if they were really witches? Because I'm just telling you, if I were really a witch, I'd go, you ain't getting me, zap. You know what? I get you back. So what did these people think when nothing came, when they just killed them? That was the end of it.
Yeah.
That
is one danger. Yeah, that's a danger. That is why I think it's important to have these institutions. And I'm not saying that you have to have a Roman Catholic Church or something like that. Obviously, I'm Presbyterian PCA, so I've different. But you have to have institutions, and you have to have vetted authority figures. And there are reasons why, we want to prevent the spread of superstition or cults or things that take advantage of other people's ignorance. And I'm not necessarily saying that the Salem witch trials represent exactly those types of situations, but there are bad track records out there of death in the name of Christianity in ways that undermine the faith completely. And so we have to be mindful of those. Of course, everyone always points to the Spanish Inquisition. That's always like the first thing. They're the Salem witch trials. Those are like the two examples people jump to right away. But I think that with the benefit of hindsight and distance from that and immersion in the text, we're able to sort of reason our way through why those situations were not the inadvertent byproduct of the faith itself, but were aberrations or were distortions of the actual true teachings.
Well, I would have probably been killed too, because I would have been the one person in the crowd that went, oops, I guess they weren't a witch. Okay, they died. So anyway, it's just all the way you look at things. And then I'm going back then to Charlie Kirk. Okay. So that someone could be so evil that they would take a life, but I'm not even thinking about that. I'm thinking of all the people with the purple hair, whatever, and some of my liberal friends who think this was a good thing to do. How can it be a good thing to kill anybody just because you differ with their opinions? Why can't you just walk off? Why can't you just say, you know what, I don't agree with that, but I'm done. Bye. Good luck. Why can't people do that?
I don't know, but people tend to go into arguments with one goal: to win. And what does that mean? It means making the other person agree with you. Well, guess what? With another adult who's lived a full life, that's unlikely to happen. People have formed their beliefs and they have their framework, and they're not going to budge that easily. So the goal in these conversations ought not to be to win, but it should be clarity and understanding. It should be, okay, I want to understand why it is you believe what you believe. And I may disagree with it, but at least I know where you're coming from. Mm-hmm. And you haven't changed my mind. And I want you to understand where I'm coming from. And maybe I haven't changed your mind either. You haven't changed my mind, but at least I understand what it is you believe. And hopefully by approaching conversations with that posture, we're able to bridge our divides. We're able to live peacefully with people we do disagree with, because again, that's the best we can hope for in civilized society. We can't hope for a homogenous worldview among all people operating in the United States of America. It's just not going to happen. But if we want to live peacefully together and respect our differences, that's how we have to start approaching conversations.
Well, I think Charlie Kirk was a master at that. And I saw a clip. My son's a huge follower of him, too. So he would continuously send me clips before all this stuff happened. So there was one he sent that really resonated with me. And there was a person, it was a guy. He had on a pink dress. His hair was pink. So he really thought he was going to transition into a woman. Well, Charlie Kirk didn't make fun of him. He tried to find a solution. There was the whole reasoning was to help this guy find a solution. And so he said, well, when did you start thinking you might be a woman on the inside? He said, all his life, just about all his life. He said, when I was about 5 years old, I thought I might be a woman inside a girl inside a boy's body. And he said, why do you think because he was asking questions to get him to think about it, not just what someone told me I am and or what I thought I was. And he said, well, I just did. He said, but the whole point was Charlie Kirk was not making fun of the guy. He was trying to help him come up with a solution. He said, okay, this is what I want you to do. He said, because I want you to find a solution. I want you to be happy. He said, you need to find someone to counsel with. He said, do that before you mutilate your body. He hadn't went through the transition yet. He was thinking about doing it. He said, before you mutilate your body. Well, when he said mutilate your body, the guy kind of had a look on his face like, ooh, maybe I am. But to me, it looked like a guy in a pink dress with hair. It didn't look anything feminine at all. I mean, he had big, broad shoulders and all that, hair on the arms, but with a sleeveless pink dress on. But the point is he got the guy to think about it. Even if it was 1 second, this guy thinks about it before he has the surgery done. I can't see what was mean-spirited about the way Charlie Kirk put that. I can't see that he was bashing the guy. I couldn't see any hate in his eyes at all. Yeah. He was genuinely concerned about this guy on the college campus who thought he was a girl.
Yeah, most of the allegations of racism and transphobia and all these things that I've seen people discussing on internet, when I have gone to track down what they are referencing, I found misrepresentation that looks intentional, that people are trying to rip quotes out of context or attribute to Kirk views he didn't hold. And that to me is very disturbing because it shows how mobilized people get around falsehoods. And that is bothersome.
It absolutely is. Okay, just about a minute left in this segment. What would you like to tell the folks before you go?
Well, I'd like to say I am proud of college football because after a couple weeks of absolute violence and horrible things, college football was able to kind of bring people together. Obviously, you root against the other team, but we all kind of, I think this past weekend in particular, realized, there are things to pay attention to. I've always said, look, if you had more golf courses in the Middle East, there would be a lot less because people would be worried about their golf game, Wow. Like people would be worried about their golf score. There are other things in life like that are recreation that we, that have great salutary effects on society at large. And I think college football it's a way to channel anger and aggression through something constructive. Talking about institutions, this is an institution that is good for society.
Couldn't agree more. And even in pro football, I mean, they're having a moment of silence. They had not been doing things like that in the past. So I'm seeing a turnaround. What was meant for evil is turning out for good, I think.
I think so.
It's just hated somebody lost their precious life for it. Alan, thank you so much for watching or for being with us. And thank you guys so much for watching. We definitely appreciate that. We'll see you next time.